It is very, very important. आप लोगों में से जो भी loan ले रहे हो, any type of loan, you have to look at the key fact statement before you sign on the paper. उसमें क्या होता है, कितना इंटरेस्ट रेट चार्ज हो रहा है, एनी हिडन फीस, एनीथिंग, जो भी कितना पैसा आपको देना पड़ेगा, दैट कम्स आउट. What happens in case of a lot of decentralized apps or unorganized lending, there are hidden charges. तो I know कि मुझे लग रहा है कि मैंने 5,000 या 10,000 लोन लिया है, मुझे 12,000 वापस देना पड़ेगा. But when I start giving, then I see 12,000 नहीं, वो तो 20,000 हो गया. Why? Because I signed on a paper without knowing what the hidden charges are, without knowing what I'm actually supposed to repay. And there are many people who unfortunately get caught in that. कि मुझे लगा कि मुझे 12,000 देना है, लेकिन मुझे देना पड़ रहा है 22,000, and then they can never get out of. That's another vicious cycle altogether, right? So decentralized apps, yes, but please be careful when you are lending. Make sure, as a lender, I have to make sure that my customer knows that I'm fully transparent with my customer. So the customer knows इतना पैसे दिया गया है, इतना पैसे वापस देना पड़ेगा, इस टाइम तक देना पड़ेगा, and it doesn't come as a surprise that after 6 months or a year, suddenly 12,000 becomes 22,000, right? So how has MFI, evolved in India? And I know there's some text over here, but to give you a long, an overview, right? Initially, it's 2024. 50 साल पहले 1974 में first microfinance lending शुरू हुआ था इंडिया में through the Seva Bank, right? वहाँ से लेके if you see how much microfinance has evolved. We are all aware 2010 में there was this issue in Andhra crisis which just got resolved in 2023 finally through a Supreme Court judgment, right? So 13 years to create a solution, but that solution has come through. It took time, but it has come through, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Today, everybody from the Prime Minister to the RBI Governor, they are talking about microfinance. Why? Because it is a means of social inclusion. It is a means of financial inclusion for millions and billions of people across India who need to be elevated. Kharcha बढ़ रहा है, so they also have to uplift their livelihood, and microfinance is a way of gaining financial inclusion. So closer to 2022, at the bottom right, you will see new rules which the RBI put in to regulate the microfinance industry in India. So I work in an MFI institution, and we have RBI audits in our company. Not just us, every MFI company, every bank, every small finance bank, we are very heavily regulated by the RBI, because ultimately we are saying we are there to fulfill a purpose of helping people get out of poverty, right? To create a more equitable, a more financially included society overall. Are we doing that? And usme the role of RBI, and I'll talk more about that in the next slide, is very, very critical and important as well. I want to spend a minute, again, a little bit more on RBI. So you must have heard, हम लोग ने सभी सुना होगा कि loan sharks, ridiculous ulta-pulta interest rates, right? People who go into trouble because they are being harassed by lenders, or they've taken amounts which they are not able to repay, and then it leads to all sorts of unpleasantness. So RBI is our regulator, like I mentioned, and the core of what we do is the CRL. It's the code for responsible lending. Kisko paisa dena? Am I being a responsible lender? Is the most important thing that every lender has to ask themselves. क्योंकि borrower को पैसे चाहिए. That is the customer segment. Everybody needs money technically, but in our customer segment, they do really need the money. But are they able to repay it? If I give somebody 5,000 rupees, will he or she be able to repay it? Otherwise, I'm just setting that person up for difficulty, for inability to repay. And that is on the borrower as well as equally as much as on the lender. So the code for responsible lending is extremely important. So we have one regulator, which is the RBI, like we mentioned. We have two SROs. SROs are self-regulatory organizations. What are they? They are a collection of MFI providing companies who come together and regulate कि आप ये कर सकते हो, आप ये नहीं कर सकते हो. They work very closely, both MFIN and Sadhan, which are our two SROs. They work very closely with all microfinance providers, not just NBFCs, NBFC MFIs, banks, SFBs, all of them. But ultimately, the goal is we have to be a responsible lender if we are actually doing what we are saying that we want to do, right? So we have to be a responsible lender. All of that comes to this slide, right? So who are we ultimately trying to help? The lady over here, like you see, and microfinance is across India. So I think this is a Northern Indian lady who is trying to send her kids to school, who's trying to make sure that her ailing parents have enough medical help in case of emergencies, who's trying to maybe buy a small little fridge for her house, right? These are small things, but they're not, they are big things, right? So it's very important to keep in mind who we are trying to help, what is it that we are trying to do. Overall, right, across what we do at Arohan, right, and across, I think, everything that we do on a day-to-day life is what kind of a world have we created till now, and what do we want to leave behind? And there are so many issues across the world, but what can I do? What can I do today to help and to stop? And again, going back to SDG number 1, to eradicate poverty across the world, right? So I'll stop here. I hope to have questions and make it more interactive, because I can go on and on about microfinance, but it'll be interesting to know if you have any specific questions that I can answer to. अच्छा, सीधे मुद्दे पर चर्चा करते हैं. शिव कुमार जी, what is JLG? मुद्दा शिव कुमार जी आप बताइएगा क्या है? Okay, आपका मुद्दा. And what is JLG? Nagarajan ji, JLG is a joint liability group, which Pratap has mentioned, where जहाँ पे lending होता है, it is lent to a group. It's not lent to individual people. It's lent to a group. Yes. हमें क्या फायदा होगा इन सब से? हमारे इंटरेस्ट की बात करें. जी बताइए आपका इंटरेस्ट क्या है शिव कुमार जी? दीन दयाल MFI. Why many government schemes for loan facilities to women failed, and I'll talk about that. How can I help someone in urban slums lend? Have you tried decentralized finance apps? We'll talk about that. Before that, I think there's a hand raised.
Hello, Shmir, and ask your question.
Yeah, okay. Very interesting presentation, and I want to ask you how in practice the model of microfinance can support poor and low socioeconomic families to resolve problems of poverty. How this model can support improve social resilience, social well-being of poor and low-income families.
Okay, so thank you for your question, Shmuel. So your question is, how can microfinance companies actually help people get out of poverty, right? So let me give you an example. I travel extensively across rural India. And rural India means very, very much in the interiors of India, where people do not have access to, financial services is, a far cry. They don't a lot of times they don't even have access to proper water or sanitation, etc. Right? So if I lend money, if my company is able to lend money to such a family, I should say that, they can probably build a toilet. They can send their children to school, right? They have to work because that money has to come back, right? If it's a 20,000 rupee loan and they are not able to repay it, then they will not get future loans. But how will they repay? Because what I said initially, they have to use that in the livelihood generation. Are they using it to buy seeds or pesticides for their farms? So we call them kheti in India, where small little farms across India, right? So are you using that to increase your yield so that you can sell your produce at a slightly higher price, better quality produce? and earn that money so that next time I can have a little more yield. I can buy some more seeds. I can get some more pesticides. If I have I'll give you another example. So we have many of our customers who are working in grocery shops, so remote Indian villages where they sell, biscuits, bread, milk, normal grocery stuff, really, really small. And we've seen them grow, right? From keeping a few biscuits and only serving tea to, having a full-fledged grocery shop, remote parts of India, right? And the idea is that and of course the idea is, and without a doubt, that the money that is being lent to these individuals, to these families, is being used for income generation. You use that to improve your livelihood, right? And then, of course, not only does the family get out of poverty, have better income, society overall progresses. That's the whole idea. I hope I was able to answer your question.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank
you, Smell. So we have Shiv Kumar Gupta.
मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि इसमें ये क्या इन्वेस्टमेंट अपॉर्चुनिटी है, इसमें है क्या, ये आप समझाए जरा हमें हिंदी में, हमारे लिए क्या है?
अच्छा, आप बोलना पड़ेगा, आप हो कौन, आपके बारे में कुछ बताइए।
मैं एक बिजनेसमैन हूँ
जी,
और तो मुझे इसमें से क्या मतलब बेनिफिट, इन्वेस्टमेंट में अपॉर्चुनिटी है या कुछ और इसमें कर सकते हैं, क्या है ये पूरे बताएं मुझे आप।
राइट, आप एक बिजनेसमैन हो, सो शिव कुमार जी आपको बताएं कि बिल्कुल इन्वेस्टमेंट अपॉर्चुनिटी है। लाइक आई सेड, देयर आर मोर देन 200 रजिस्टर्ड MFIs, माइक्रोफाइनेंस इंस्टीट्यूशंस अक्रॉस इंडिया, और भी है जो NGOs हैं या NBFCs हैं, छोटे बड़े बहुत अलग अलग साइजेस के। उसमें अगर आप इन्वेस्ट करना चाहते हो, what they will do is they will take money as equity and then they will leverage it. They will also lend from banks based on money that you give them. So overall जितना amount होगा, typical leverage of a MFI is between 4 to 5 times. Total जो amount होगा उसको they will lend it out to people. Now जिसको दे रहे हैं आपके locally अगर आप देखोगे, there must be people, must be companies who do lending. आप कहाँ से हो सर?
मैं मध्य प्रदेश से हूँ, MP से।
हमारा काफी काम होता है MP में। मैं भी MP जा चुकी हूँ कई बार।
आपका मेन काम कहाँ पर होता है MP में?
MP में हमारा 3 रीजनल ऑफिसेस हैं, जबलपुर, इंदौर और एक रायपुर में है, छत्तीसगढ़ में है दूसरा, तो जबलपुर और इंदौर में है जी।
तो मैडम ये बताएं, जैसे हम इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, इसमें रिस्क कितना है?
इसका क्या रिस्क है इसमें? रिस्क तो है, रिस्क आप बिल्कुल रिस्क है, एंड लाइक एनी बिजनेस, बट ऑफ कोर्स इट डिपेंड्स ना, आप जिस कंपनी में इन्वेस्ट करोगे वो आपको देखना पड़ेगा वो कंपनी उस पैसे से क्या कर सकती है। यू हैव टू, जैसे
आपका प्लेटफॉर्म है आरोहन, ये है करता क्या है, ये क्या हमें क्या सुविधा देता है, ये आरोहन का क्या है? ये
आरोहन का टोटल पोर्टफोलियो साइज इज 6,300 करोड़ अक्रॉस इंडिया। हम लोग इन्वेस्टर्स से करीब we have a net worth of over I think around less than 2,000 crores, and उससे ओवरऑल पैसे हम लोग बैंक से, जैसे मैंने कहा, बैंक से इक्विटी एंड डेट मिला के 6,300 करोड़ रुपए का अक्रॉस राइट नाउ आई थिंक वी हैव 17 स्टेट्स जहाँ पे हम लोग कंपनी माइक्रो फाइनेंस ब्रोकर्स को ये माइक्रो लोन्स देते हैं फ्रॉम 5,000 to 75,000 रुपीज।
तो आपका ये B2C प्रोग्राम है, B2C है, B2B नहीं है?
जी नहीं, हमारा B2C है प्राइमरीली। B2B है कि हम लोग भी दूसरे स्मॉलर कंपनीज को लेंडिंग करते हैं जिनका शायद 1 करोड़ या 5 करोड़, वो लोग भी माइक्रो फाइनेंस लेंडिंग करेंगे, लेकिन उनकी जरूरत है 1 करोड़ या 5 करोड़, इतना आई थिंक मैक्सिमम 25 करोड़ का होता है। दैट इज B2B वेयर वी लेंड दोस, हम लोग उस कंपनीज को भी पैसे देते हैं ताकि वो आगे जाके उनके कस्टमर्स को लेंड कर सके माइक्रो फाइनेंस।
अच्छा, ओके मैडम, थैंक यू।
थैंक यू। We have a question from Nagarajan Krishnamurthy. Why many government schemes for loan facilities to women like DWCRA, IRDP have failed?
When we are lending to people, it is very important, बहुत important है ये समझना कि किसको दे रहे हैं और कितना दे रहे हैं, right? If everybody needs money, ठीक है? I'm saying money, my best friend is saying money, my neighbor is saying they need money, very good. Now, अगर आप मुझे मेरी I can only repay at this point in time a loan of 5,000. आप मुझे 5,000 दोगे, उसमें इंटरेस्ट जोड़ के सपोज आई हैव टू गिव बैक 5,500 रुपीज। आई नो आई कैन रीपे दैट बैक। लेकिन अगर मैं आपको बोलूँ या आप मुझे बोले एज अ लेंडर, आप मुझे बोले दैट आई एम गोइंग टू गिव यू 50,000 रुपीज, आप पे कर देना 55,000 रुपीज, I can take it, but then I am not able to repay that amount. So in many cases, not just government, but other cases as well, we have seen NBFCs, MFIs, microfinance institutions, which had to stop lending during COVID. Because customers could not repay that amount, right? These are collateral free loans. आप किसी पे कुछ check करके, you are as a lender, you know, if Radhika's a lender and Radhika's lending to me, then Radhika is going to see, okay, can Reema repay back this money? Essentially, that's what she will see. क्योंकि उनको तो पैसा वापस चाहिए. It's not a gift, it's a loan. It has to be given back. Gift नहीं कि 5,000 रुपए आप ले लो. So in many cases क्या होता है, not just government but other institutions as well, customers are not able to repay. There can be an external calamity, कोई floods आ गए, बाढ़ आ गए, कोविड के जैसे तो पैंडेमिक ही आ गया, or anything. It could be मेरे दुकान में आग लग गया, or somebody in my family had to be hospitalized. And in those cases, people are not able to repay. In which cases, not just government schemes, even पूरा क्या बोलते हैं, बना बनाया companies have to stop operations because their customers are unable to repay on time. So I think long story short, it's बहुत important होता है, it's very very critical. इसको दे रहे हैं, if that can be rightly the right call can be taken on that, it benefits of course the borrower as well as the lender, both ways, and it's a sustainable solution. Otherwise it just things stop, and like you said, schemes fail, companies fail as well.
There's a question from Sundeep. How can I help someone in urban slums lend? Have you tried decentralized finance apps?
Okay, so urban slums में, so if you see, typically क्या होता है, unfortunately even today, a lot of lending is unorganized. What does that mean? Local कोई साहूकार होगा who is going to give me money, but they will also charge 50% interest rate or sometimes even more, right? And you will be surprised when you talk about decentralized apps. Nowadays, there are so many apps which give lending. RBI has finalized, I think 2 days back, I was seeing finalized what they call a key fact statement. It is very, very important. आप लोगों में से जो भी loan ले रहे हो, any type of loan, you have to look at the key fact statement before you sign on the paper. उसमें क्या होता है, कितना interest rate charge हो रहा है, any hidden fees, anything, जो भी कितना पैसा आपको देना पड़ेगा, that comes out. What happens in case of a lot of decentralized apps or unorganized lending, there are hidden charges. तो I know कि मुझे लग रहा है कि मैंने 5,000 या 10,000 लोन लिया है, मुझे 12,000 वापस देना पड़ेगा. But when I start giving, then I see 12,000 नहीं, वो तो 20,000 हो गया. Why? Because I signed on a paper without knowing what the hidden charges are, without knowing what I'm actually supposed to repay. And there are many people who unfortunately get caught in that. कि मुझे लगा कि मुझे 12,000 देना है, लेकिन मुझे देना पड़ रहा है 22,000, and then they can never get out of. That's another vicious cycle altogether, right? So decentralized apps, yes, but please be careful when you are lending. Make sure as a lender, I have to make sure that my customer knows that I'm fully transparent with my customer. So the customer knows इतना पैसे दिया गया है, इतना पैसे वापस देना पड़ेगा, इस time तक देना पड़ेगा, and it doesn't come as a surprise that after 6 months or a year, suddenly 12,000 becomes 22,000, right? And how can you help in urban slums? I think there are a lot of localized institutions as well, as I was telling Shivji, that do lending individually. It could be NGOs, could be proper banks or MFIs as well. आपको बस आपके urban slums में देखना पड़ेगा क्या चल रहा है. Only request would be that please be careful, make sure it is a regulated institution and not somebody who is just randomly lending out and charging ridiculous rates of interest.